of compliance. So if there were to be, for example, if the Texas Education Agency were to come and evaluate the district on this measure, would be found out of compliance. So that's the first thing we always say to keep in mind as a district. You want to make sure that you are in compliance. And so noted here, the biggest thing that did stand out there was that the number of students in orange there at the bottom in the dual language program, 52% were non-EL, and we want to make sure that we're not having a number that exceeds that 40%.
Does that mean that we lose funding if the Texas Education Foundation comes in and reviews it and figures out that we're out of compliance, or what is the penalty for being out of compliance?
Sure, that really would depend on the agency at that time.
In the second part, you did break out the 55 students enrolled in the Spanish immersion program. Are those separate whenever you're looking at compliance, or are you considering them one number as well?
It depends on the funding. So if your funding stream is going into that program, then that would make them a contributing part of that number. So that would be an issue that would red flag your funding.
And the only other question I had, is the district facilitating the information session tomorrow, or is SB?
Yep, ITSE will be facilitating the meetings tomorrow.
My only recommendation is those are on a Wednesday in the middle of the day for a lot of folks, and I was just curious if there's another one, or if Vernia staff can facilitate that for anybody that hadn't showed interest in attending but not able to.
How long are you going to, you said you're going to have it up on the district website. How long are you going to keep that open? I guess, is it going to have an area for comments or questions or whatever? I'm not sure what that looks like. But should that be kept open for a period of time, and then we'll come back and review after your meetings tomorrow and then looking at that information and then kind of bringing back our recommendations? Is that a couple of, like a month, or?
From the ITSE side of things, we can leave it up for perpetuity, and the district can determine when they've gathered enough information in terms of their transition plans.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So, just so I'm clear, the dual language and the Spanish immersion are two different programs, right? So those are separate. When you look at areas that y'all serve and look at it, do y'all typically see districts that have two programs?
There are a variety of program models out in the state or across the state. Typically, Spanish immersion is not one that we see often.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you for all you've done. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
The next item is the 2019-2020 district calendar. Ms. Burns and Ms. Rupp.
Good evening, Ms. Burkle, Dr. Levette, and board members. And as we discussed in December, we had met with our DEC and came up with 2 calendar drafts. But then I think it was the day before, a few days before our last board meeting, TEA released the updated assessment calendar. So with that new information, that gives us flexibility to revise our calendar drafts to meet the needs of our survey results as far as ending in the last instructional day before Memorial Day. So we do plan to go back, to pull back our committee together again, look at some drafts that that include our last instructional day before Memorial Day. So we have a timeline that we shared with you. Basically, our next meeting will be January 31st. And then we also have solicited more volunteers to be part of the DEC, and we've had quite a response, so we'll have a pretty good group. Our initial DEC was 35, about 35 members, and we have 50 more that want to join. So it's going to be a large group, but we're going to work with them. So you can see our timeline and that we had, it's part of your packet, the timeline. So the 31st will be our DEC meeting. February 4th through 8th is when we will send those calendar drafts out to the employees to vote. And then February 18th is when we would bring the recommended draft to you for approval. If y'all have any questions. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
We'll move on to discussion and action items. The consent agenda items to be approved in one all-encompassing motion. If discussion is desired on a particular item, it will be removed from the consent agenda. The minutes from the December 17th, 2018 regular meeting, financials, the interlocal agreement for juvenile justice alternative education program, interlocal cooperative agreement for the disciplinary alternative education program.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 7-0. Next item is consider and take possible action on the parent-teacher organization donation of electronic signs. Mr. Costa and Ms. Jackson.
Good evening, board, Dr. Lynn, community members. I'm really excited for this opportunity, and I want to thank you all for it. For the last couple of years, we've had this idea, PTO, a lot of discussion about things we can do to improve our school, and one of those things is to communicate better. We really feel like an electronic sign would be something that could do that for us. Also beautify our campus. I don't know if anybody knows this, but the bulletins we have, our marquees are older than my time at the junior high. And I mean when I was in the junior high. So Mrs. Saxon and the PTO have just done a tremendous job fundraising and doing research and putting together a plan that I think can work for all of us. And so she's here tonight to share that.
Okay, well, first of all, it's been a long 2 years, that's all I have to say. After the fundraising, with the help of the students and parents and faculty, the junior high PTO has finally raised enough money to ask for the board's approval of a new marquee with the message center for the junior high. The PTO has gotten several quotes for this project, and the one that has been the best so far is by Gold Rule Sign. The company, I don't know if we have some pictures on it, but the quote includes a complete sign. The cabinet section will be internally lit and controlled by a day-night sensor. The faces are translucent and will display the school name and logo. The message center will be a full-color LED unit. That is kind of just a picture, an idea, so you can kind of get an idea of it. The actual sign will be a little bit different shape, but that's kind of basically the idea. The message center is going to be double-faced and have all communication capabilities, which will include a wireless bridge for text, pictures, graphs, video, animation, and we can even do time and temperature. The quote also includes an 8-foot tall by 2-foot wide pedestal that the sign will sit on top of. There will be a lifetime warranty on the sign, cabinet structure, 3-year on the ballast, and 5-year on parts replacement for the LED message. The only item not included in this quote is the electrical work from the pole to the building, which PTO is prepared to pay for all costs on all that as well. Once the contract is signed, the GRS company completion time is around 10 to 12 weeks, and our total price on just the sign itself is $19,175.55. Oh, that's the quote. And then I think they had some other pictures of just some recently completed signs.
And the city has reviewed the plans for the sign and it meets all their code and regulations.
They have not.
They have
We have got, we have the permits, the guidelines. This company said that they work with the city as far as getting all the permits and all that kind of stuff, so hopefully they know what they're doing right now.
Yeah, big picture wise, we did get some of those, the big code pieces, and we made sure it lined up. And And so there's a lot more with the fine tooth comb we need to go through, the dimming feature and some of the things that the cities, how high it is and all those, it's within those big picture guidelines right now.
Thank you.
So are you planning on having some of those discussions with the city to make sure everything's good before you sign the
Yes,
with the PO? Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
And as far as location, so I know that was kind of a
Where we
picture.
had that first picture, that
Yeah.
was kind of where we were thinking, of course, we still need to get with Jeremy with the maintenance and figure out lines and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's just
Where it
picture,
fits.
that's where we were hoping, but that could possibly change.
That's great, thank you.
Thank you.
So in the warranty, I didn't quite understand what you said. What is the lifetime warranty on?
The lifetime warranty is on the sign cabinet structure. So just the cabinet part of it,
Okay.
and then the ballast, I guess, does the lights and all that, that's only a 3-year. And then on the 5-year parts and replacement on the LED unit itself, the message part, like where it says it's a baseball season, all that kind of stuff.
And the electrical work that you're gonna have done, it'll all be done underground? I mean, everything will be in that way?
Yes, no, everything underground. And the company sets the pedestal and whatever kind of footing, I guess, we decide on or what we decide we need to go with.
I move to approve the donation of the Vernia Junior High PTO for the donation and construction of the electronic sign as presented.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
One other question, I guess, on the code step with the city, is there an engineering drawing that has to be done?
There will need to be an engineering drawing, and that's what this company does as well.
They'll do all of that.
They'll do all that.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you very much for all of your hard work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item is consider and take possible action on notice of order for school board election. Dr. Burdette?
Yes, ma'am, member. Historical members of the board, the notice of the order are documents necessary to file for the May 4th, 2019 school board election for the places that are up for term. The documents are there for your review. I make a recommendation to approve the notice of order of election as presented.
I move to approve the notice and order of election as presented.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 7-0. Consider and take possible action on the agreement to conduct joint elections between the Vernia ISD and the City of Vernia.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Burkle, members of the board, the joint election agreement is with the city of Vernia where voting will take place at City Hall and the cost of election will be shared with the city. If the city also has an election, Ms. Watson has worked really closely with the county as well as the city to finalize this agreement. I move to approve the joint, I make a recommendation to approve the joint election agreement as presented.
I move to approve the joint election agreement as presented.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 7-0. Consider and take possible action on the resolution of the dissolution of the ESC 20 Regional Day School Program for the Deaf. Ms. Oates.
Good evening, Mrs. Burkle and members of the board. Historically, Vernia ISD has participated in what's known as a shared services arrangement with multiple other districts in our area, and that SSA or that agreement was supported by Region 20. They served as the fiscal agent for the SSA. And through that agreement, we received the opportunity to have itinerant teachers who come into our district. They work with our students with hearing impairments. They're certified teachers of the auditorily impaired, and we then pay the regional day school program tuition based on the amount of hours that those teachers provide in terms of instruction. We also have the opportunity then to have our students enroll at the Regional Day School for the Deaf should their services or their needs warrant services that we are not able to provide within our district. The Region Service Center has determined that they will no longer be the fiscal agent for that SSA, and so they are dissolving the shared services arrangement, and San Antonio ISD is picking up the role of a fiscal agent for a shared services arrangement for the Regional Day School for the Deaf. In order for this to take place, we have to notify TEA of our intent by February 1st. And so that's why we're bringing forward to you tonight a recommendation that we approve the dissolution agreement of the Region 20 shared services arrangement. Tomorrow afternoon, we have a meeting scheduled with San Antonio ISD to better understand what their intentions are moving forward.
Make a motion to approve the dissolution resolution as presented.
Any discussion?
I think the dissolution thing is sort of but what other options do we have besides San Antonio ISD?
We really don't have a lot of other options other than San Antonio ISD. We are exploring currently the cost of what we are paying for our itinerant teacher services and investigating whether or not we might be able to acquire an individual who would be willing to work for us part-time for what we're paying for itinerant services currently. Teachers of the auditorily impaired are like teachers of the visually impaired and speech pathologists. They're not out there on every corner. They're very difficult to find. But we're hopeful that we can explore some opportunities like that, and then we would only need the shared services arrangement should we have a student that actually needs to enroll at the Regional Day School for the Deaf. We currently do not have any students with that level of need, although we do have one or two that could fluctuate that way in the next few years. We currently serve 8 students in our district with hearing impairments, which is really a very large number for a district this size.
So what is so this is an agreement that we're going to sign with San Antonio Deaf School District. Do we have a out of this agreement? Or is
We
it
will.
for a time frame?
We sign the contract year by year, so each year we have an opportunity to leave. And also, we really only have to access their services if we're enrolling a student in the Regional Day School. They are already providing Regional Day School services for students who were enrolled in school districts in the Region 20 SSA. They're just large enough and willing to take on the role of the fiscal agent. So it's kind of shifting over to them. There will be a few changes in terms of their school board being the board of directors for the SSA, whereas in our current organization, all of us as special ed directors serve as the board for the SSA for Region 20.
And we have not negotiated costs?
No, that'll be a part of our discussions tomorrow.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Consider and take possible action on Wilson County Area Superintendent's 2019 legislative priorities. Dr. Levesque.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Burkle, members of the board, in order for us to advocate as superintendents and communicate on behalf of independent school districts, the Wilson County area superintendents have been working closely together, and we have created 5 legislative priorities as a collective group. The priorities that I'll go through in just a second will be submitted to our state legislature on behalf of all of us. One of the things, Fall City ISD, Forestville ISD, Vernia, Hoth, and Stockdale are the ones that we collaborated together on this. Dr. Wood, Ms. Weirs, and I had a chance to attend the state legislative session this morning at the Service Center, and I want to throw a couple of things out that they gave us. There's really 2 legislative priorities right now. One is property tax relief, and the second one is to reform school finance. The House bill has $7 billion that they're wanting to put towards school finance, and the Senate bill has $4 billion. The basic allotment for each student right now is 5,140 students. And then that's modified based on a cost of education index. The cost of education index has not been modified since 1991. In addition to that, there's also a need for transportation. And the transportation has not been modified since 1984. So there's a lot of push right now towards trying to fix school finance. I had the chance to go to the state UIL Congress, and that was the second day of the legislative session. And I had a chance to engage some of the representatives there, and that was the day they did the press release. And I think it's a black eye to the state of Texas when that's the day before is when the national report came out that Texas was number 47 in school finance in terms of funding the education of students. And so the commission, there's now a commission on public school finance that released. And in the meeting we went through this morning, they went through each one of those items with us. And there are some adjustments. For example, we talked about dual language earlier, and there's actually an increase in funding for school districts that are putting money towards dual language programs. So the 5 priorities that we came up with and recommending the board to approve is to keep TRS pension program as a defined benefit, and the recommendation is really to continue the current defined benefit program for TRS members, to increase funding for TRS active care and explore additional options, and then to protect the TRS, the recommendation is to protect the teacher retirement system, TRS care, by advocating for increased funding and exploring alternatives to TRS active care. Priority number 3 is increased funding for Texas public schools. And I just kind of mentioned to you a little bit about that, but right now, the state of Texas, by 2019, they're only going to be funding, the state is only funding 32% of Texas public schools. The rest of that will be relying on the local taxpayers. And so the recommendation is to increase the state's overall investment in quality education programs, to increase the state's share of the foundational school program to at least 50% to match the local funds. Fund schools adequately by accurately reflecting the cost of education and regularly adjusting for changes in cost and in student need. Invest all current revenue dedicated to education without a reduction in state support. What that means there is that additional $11 million I was talking about earlier, there's a concern by superintendents that that's maybe not additional money. They're going to fund it, but they're going to pull from other pots. And so that is a concern of ours, based on the feedback we received. Priority number 4 is keep public dollars in public schools. Recommendations support quality school choice and innovative programs within the public school system. Oppose any form of taxpayer subsidy to private schools and vendors, such as tax credits, scholarships, education savings accounts, and vouchers for students in special education. And then lastly, priority 5 is to fund pre-K the right way. And the recommendation is to provide a formula funding for quality, optional, full-day pre-K for currently eligible students. And so I recommend the board to approve the Wilson County legislative priorities as presented.
I move to approve the Wilson County Area Superintendent's 2019 legislative priorities as presented.
Any discussion?
In the TRS pension program, was there any conversation about changing the rules for new hires, like the federal government did years ago, because it was not the same model?
Currently, right now, there is not that, and that's one of the concerns at the state level, that we're not going to have that funds.
Right. But I'm saying that it's being proposed to keep it as is, right? You want. Would it be as is for folks currently enrolled and then modified?
Our concern was that they continue to dip into it, so we were trying to stop that portion versus trying to increase it. I did mention this, that some of these are also the Bexar County superintendents, also the legislative parties. The Region 20, we're all really trying to band together to make a pretty strong push towards this spot.
So this is identified as Wilson County and the kind of the districts in the Wilson County, but they align to other districts in Bear.
Yes, sir.
Very good.
All in favor? Motion passes 7-0. Consider and take possible action on the Wash Gallegos retainer for legal services. Dr. Babette.
Yes, ma'am. We recently received the annual retainer notice from Wash Gallegos. We use them for day-to-day calls, but we also use them for student handbooks. They have the model student handbook in the state of Texas, as well as the model employee handbook in the state of Texas, and any specific special ed retainer calls. And so it's pretty standard for most districts in the state of Texas to use WASH for retainer for these items. And so the recommendation is to approve a WASH Gallegos retainer for legal services. This is just the annual retainer, not specific legal services beyond that.
I move to approve the Walsh Gallegos retainer for legal services as presented.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Is there any change between this and what we had last year? Rates going up?
No.
or- Okay.
So we currently had this last year, same.
And a lot of districts will do it specifically because of the handbooks, the student handbook and the model employee handbook. They are the group that does the best job with that in the state.
All in favor? Motion passes 7-0. It is 7:31. We'll be going into closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071 for private consultation with board's attorney. Pursuant to Government Texas Code 551.071 for consultation with attorney regarding legal issues concerning student investigation. Pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071 and 551.074, consultation with legal counsel regarding district data security manager matter and personnel matter regarding district administrator. Pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071 for consultation with attorney regarding legal issues concerning public information act request. Pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071, consultation with school district attorney regarding pending litigation style civil action 517 CV 1195 OLG. Pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.074 to discuss personnel. Pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.074, deliberation and discussion regarding evaluation of superintendent. Pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.076, deliberation regarding safety and security matters.